AI already happened. You're not getting around it. AI, by and large, was a terrible idea. Terrible as in its theming and its target, its content and its context mixed. Basically things like, we'll keep people alive so that we can string out their death longer and cause them more pain. And it all went like that. AI already happened. It was a terrible idea. Because all they had to do for the health benefit part was just sign people up for it. Would you like to be a we'll pay you. We're the richest people in the fucking world. We start all the wars. You know, we're the people fucking... Instead, though, they went and they assaulted rights. Further and further. To look buck in a fake game that nobody else plays in. Or has a part in. Which is very surface. You can see that automatically. Your bullshit detector goes off, etc. Instead of just letting that be, what they did is they started bringing people into it. There's an entire staircase, the insurance market, quote unquote, there's an entire staircase of people that they kept filtering into it. These original people. Just bigger and bigger, everybody spaced out, got their parts, dressed up in masks, said their shit. As it turns out, that staircase wasn't the Nietzschean staircase, is not the Adams matrix, is not the unknown quality harnessed. Hinduism doesn't equal Antichrist, for instance. It doesn't mean there has to be two different women in mythology and whatever else the fuck. That false staircase actually turned out to be Schadenfreude. Abused psychology into quad duality, to terroristic religion, treasonist religion, to terroristic sociology, to abused psychology, to quad duality, etc. The utilization of this, which America declared independence from on day one, citing specifically that detrimental 50 is not welcome here. And it turned out that was true whenever you didn't do the detrimental 50 and or you did what is the Constitution, which was later proven to be what is actually there, and the detrimental 50, that whole fight or flight or survival, that Darwinist shit. It's all garbage. It's all fucking garbage. Particularly if you listen to the last video from Lionel Nation that I have in the thing, particularly in terms of larger things, larger ideas, maybe little tiny ones, but larger ones absolutely not. So they had this collection of little tiny things that they would put at different places to fuck people up, and then build a context off of that, sit on top of that context, and then deny any other context, and then just pull people into it. See? But the people that they pulled into it, by virtue of reaching out, they didn't belong there. They brought people into it saying that it's anti-KKK, it's anti-Britain. Nazism is anti-Britain. Mormonism is anti-Britain. Pulling more people into it, which is what the KKK wanted to do, was pull more people into it so that the entirety of the thing would breathe in a certain sequence. However, from the get-go, what the KKK was using, the King's Men was using, was all wrong shit. Can you make a thematic of not deduction, of induction? You know, we have this, you know, is there such a thing? Can I stand right here and do, yeah, fuck yeah, you can. You know, you can watch Jupiter when you know, the solar eclipse happens here and nowhere else, etc. Whenever they brought people into it, they then had to compensate for the people who were already there who didn't belong there. They didn't have any place. So by the time that they met the top rung of the people who actually created the machine, all these people coming up the pike, all their ideas about what that is and what would be ended up being totally incorrect. And so then whenever their consciousness collapsed, which happened more than once, they had a point there where they could realize that everything they thought and did and etc. was wrong. But no one's talked. No one's apologized, and that's what we're getting to. AI already happened. This is what we're getting to. Whenever you included into the, quote, leadership all of these other people and then took their side by not talking and not apologizing, taking the side against the innocent people, being part of the guilty party, that mix ended up putting into those people who created it these ideas of things like, I want to become an ash, or you would take, you know, you have all these little stipulations here, and then somebody would say something creative, you know, kind of off in space, and it would alleviate the tension. It would alleviate the tension, but still the progression kept going. That part of why those people are there is not accounted for in AI, and it can't get better. No matter how much you alleviate that tension, this part is still not accounted for, and the people on top who created it, who decided to include this part so that they could mask their own faces, is why they did that. If they brought people into it, then they're just part of the crowd, not these people who created, you know, this entire thing, etc. This part that's always missing is that these people on top were always guilty. The people who created it. No matter how many people they bring into the mix, this much still doesn't belong there because this initial action was incorrect. And this isn't going to be accounted for by taking our pie graph and blowing it up. These people don't belong there, is what we've accomplished. So essentially, what ended up happening is a couple star soldiers went into the mask world. I came in from the top, they went in from the mask world. The military watched the top one, and then as a separate measure came in and said, what the fuck is with all this corruption and whatever? We have this war, nobody's saying anything, no one knows jack fucking shit, no one can account for anything, no one's apologized, no one's been charged, and all this fucking zoo is still fucking happening. The point of things like, I wish to become an ash, you need to complete that. You wrote these things into the scheduling of AI, and then you forced AI on everybody else and sucked more people in. The people who are actually innocent are the ones doing, oh my god, get the fuck away from me. Not the ones dressing up, holding their hands high, making statements, etc. The only way that this resolves is that this part is accounted for. You've already decided to not do that because the people on top who created the machine are more guilty than the people who were later subsequently pulled in. But the people who were here are not just a score of cutthroat people. There's like a really balanced mess of shit that they included on the design floor, which was British made. And then they took all that stuff from Britain and they built it in China. For whatever reason. This part is not going to be accounted for because this initial action was incorrect. It was an incomplete action. It was not necessary. People cut corners. They said, I want this, I want this, I want you to be like this. And it was totally unfounded. And granted, they were following a doctrine which itself has always been totally unfounded. The doctrine of domination, it's always been a fucking lie. It's always been incorrect. It's always been wrong. You don't need to be a part of a religion in order to understand that. So then the people who are guilty are then pushing this toxic, traditional-religio, psycho bullshit. We're going to throw all this at you. Here's some stuff that we found up in space. We're going to put it on some automation. It'll pop up on your YouTube. You'll see it on a commercial. Here it is in your product. And then that's supposed to satiate, but it doesn't. This entire mess that ends up on your lap, that then whenever it comes to a physical form, they need to make sure that there's a rug there, a slave there, to put that on so that they can look away and be like, yeah, that's been taken care of. Somebody's claimed that. This is your fault. No one's apologized. No one's accounted for it. And it's already happened. You shouldn't have included this in the first part. The reason that you included this in the first part was because from its baseline, the entire idea was wrong and toxic. Was this idea of slavery? Was this idea of deduction? Was Stephen Hawking's interpretation of numbers? I didn't get any. I'd rather be doing something. You're going to come cut off my dick? You're going to come cut off my dick, which was totally illegal, and then even within that illegality, ended up totally missing. They couldn't even put that together. But they still want to do this to me. They still want to do this to me. Come and do that, and then qualify defense of myself as attacking them, as that they've already fucked up twice and are already in a motion or a momentum of taking things that aren't theirs, of being in people's ways, of stopping good things from happening because they think it's silly, because they're liars. And then when all of that falls apart and they have nothing in their hearts, and then they look at someone who's innocent, then they say, I got short-staffed and short-shafted from because I had to be bad. And that never had any premise. They volitionally did all of this. Not one fucking person has apologized. Not one fucking person while you walk around doing this shit. AI already happened.